Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's me, Mr. Hubner. Haven't seen you in a while. Um, Today's lesson is going to look kind of familiar, but as we move forward, as we move on from what we were doing in class to what we were going to be doing in class, uh, it's all based on equations. So I felt like we needed just a quick review of solving for x, solving for y, or whatever. Um, this may seem basic, but we've talked about this before, especially with math, everything builds on itself. So as you're working through, as you learn to add, subtract, multiply, divide, you add different components to that, and you're going to use those same four functions for the rest of your life. Mister, when I'm going to use this in real life, you're going to add, you're going to subtract, multiply, and divide every day for the rest of your life in some way, shape, or form. So I wanted to have a short, quick review of what equations are, how to solve them before we move on to bigger and better things. So, reviewing equation. An equation, two words that we use almost interchangeably in math are equation and expression. An expression is just a math sentence. 1 plus 2, 6 times 14. It takes numbers and operations, or variables and operations. Those numbers, those variables are called terms, and those operations are like the verbs. They tell us what we're doing. So in these three equations, the expression would be v plus 6, but an equation is a math sentence that can be solved. So v plus 6 equals 7, or negative 3 equals negative negative 13 equals negative 3 plus s, or negative 8 equals x plus 2. Each of these have terms in it and operations. So you take your terms, and then the operations tell us what we're doing with those terms. Now, solving a two-step equation, each of those that we just solved were one-step equations. Either you're going to add, multiply, subtract, or divide. You're going to do one of those four operations, and then when you do that operation, you're going to have your answer. With a two-step equation, there's, as the name implies, there's at least two steps to it. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to see if we have anything that we can use the distributive property. Remember, the distributive property has to do with parentheses. There's one and there's two. So anything that's in parentheses, you do that first. We don't have one with 2x plus 5 equals 11, so we don't have to worry about that. The next thing we do is we combine any like terms. Like terms means they have the same variable. And then with solving two-step equations with variables, this is the key. It's normally, if you were solving equations and there's no variables, you use PEMDAS. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. But with equations that involve variables, you do the opposite. You do SADMAP, which is really PEMDAS in reverse. And it's relying on what are called inverse operations. Inverse operations mean that they undo the operation. Inverse just means opposite. So opposite of addition, subtraction. Opposite of multiplication, division. The opposites. Think of it like two sides of a sphere. So we undo addition and subtraction first, then multiplication and division as needed. I'm going to move myself right up here into the corner because I want you to be able to read and see everything on the screen. So we undo addition and subtraction first, then multiplication and division. And then the last step is we check our answer by replacing the variable with the answer. So let's try an example. If I give you 5x minus 7 equals 23. Now using SADMAP, I'm going to look for anything that I can add or subtract first. So the opposite, I have 5x minus 7. So I have this coefficient, or excuse me, I have this constant of negative 7 by itself. So that's the first thing I'm going to try and get rid of. So I'm going to, the opposite of addition, of subtraction is addition. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides of my equation. Why do I do that? Well, by adding to both sides, it gets rid of that 7 and it combines it with our 23. So when I add 7 to 23, I get 30. So 5x equals 30. Now, said the opposite of addition is subtraction. What's the opposite of multiplication? That's right. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to get my highlighter to work again. So I have 5x equals 30. I'm going to divide both sides by 5, which leaves me on one side, 5 divided by 5 gives me 1. And we know that anything, x multiplied by anything equals itself 1. So then that means x equals 30 divided by 5 leaves me with 6. And I can figure this out by putting my 6 in as my x. So 5 times 6 gives me 30 minus 7. 30 minus 7 equals 23. So, moving on. I'm going to pull up 2 more examples, and I wanted to look especially at x divided by 6 plus 8 equals 15. Now, in this equation, I have division and addition. Which one do I want to do first? Correct. I want to get rid of my 8 first. So, I have a positive 8 here. Anytime I'm adding something, that means that I'm taking and adding more to it, so it's going in a positive direction. So since I have a positive 8, opposite of, or the inverse of positive 8 is negative 8. So I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So that leaves me with x over 6 equals 15 minus 8 equals what? Oh, hi, Lucy. 15 minus 8 equals 7. So I'm left with x over 6 equals 7. That's a really poor looking 7, but please excuse, I'm trying to draw with just my finger on my little trackpad here. So, how do I get rid of that 6? Well, in my equation, I'm dividing by 6. So the opposite of division is multiplication. But if you look at it, it's written as a fraction. Now, if I'm dividing by 6 is the same as multiplying by 1 over 6. And this is going to come into play later on. But since I'm dividing x by 6, I'm going to multiply both sides by 6. So x equals, and then 7 times 6 gives me 42. All right, I'm going to take a pause here real quick. I'm going to leave these up on the board and give you a chance to work on this last one. And we're back. Now it's time for some independent practice. In your notebook, I want you to copy down these 6 equations. I know it says copy down either the evens or odds, but I've got a lot of faith in you guys. I believe that you can complete all 6 of these equations. So I want you to copy them in your notebook take a picture of that, send that to me at the bottom. So this is going to be your work for today. I want you to copy these 6 equations into your notebook and complete them. Send that to me. And if you have any questions, you can email me, give me a call. I'll leave my number for my Google Voice, or I will see you in our next class session. Have a great rest of your day and stay healthy.